Aventurine has been one of my favorite characters for a while now. Ever since his teaser back in 1.4 with that one call with Topaz, it has made me like him a lot, especially in the way that he speaks and how sassy he can be, honestly. And legitimately, this was just further enhanced when he first appeared in the 2.0 Penacony story, where he was someone that I personally just adored to distrust, yet still want to work with in the plot. I love the fact as well that Aventurine went through the Farina treatment, so to speak. In the first patch that they appeared, they just were absolutely hated by the community. They were despised, loathed, and it's surprising how much people have hated them. But then come the next patch where you actually get to learn more about them, you learn more of their story, you see this very sad and very depressing side of them. Everyone loves and adores them. And to be fair, it makes sense. Aventurine was, it was not written as a good guy. He was written really well, but he was not written as a good guy. And it pretty much shows with how he had so many schemes going on. He had this conniving vibes that he gave off. And overall, people had speculations about him, and they had to be on high alert. During the 2.1 patch though, honestly, they went off incredibly hard for his design and his character. And legitimately, they fleshed him out so freaking well through interactions, not only with us as a Trailblazer, but also Dr. Ratio, Acheron, Sunday, and Aventurine was able to portray himself as the perfect villain in order to achieve his goals, despite that not being his true nature. He was able to banter both seriously and hilariously with Dr. Ratio. He clashed with Acheron in order to move along his schemes, and the tension that was felt throughout that entire scene in the conversation with Sunday at his office with multiple plot twists was just insane and amazing. And genuinely, this storyline for 2.1 has been so beautiful. One of my favorite patches in the entire history of Star Rail, and I'm really looking forward to more of them like this, because yeah, I just needed to say that I adored this patch. That being said though, throughout this video I wish to explore Aventurine's character design, going over his gameplay, flavor design, and the impact that he has had on the story. For more information on these categories, please feel free to check out my video on Star Rail's best designed character, where I go more in depth about these topics and even give out fleshed out examples and explanations on good and bad designs. However, in short, in terms of gameplay, we have anything related to the combat system in Star Rail. That would be attacks, ultimates, skills, synergies, and even passive abilities. While on the other hand, we have flavor design, which encompasses most of the things that are not related to the combat system. In this we have animations, voice lines, aesthetics, synergies for a different reason, and in all honesty, this category is the one that is most influenced by my own bias. So do take what I say with a grain of salt. Last but not least though, we have impact, which would refer to the story relevance of the character, and this may include whether the character has appeared in the Trailblaze mission or whatever effect they have had in the world itself, or if another character has had an effect on them, or if they have had another effect on another character. Whether these characters be playable or not, what matters is the influence that they have reached within their stories. But with all that now out of the way, let us see why Aventurine is perfectly designed. The first thing I want to go over is how Aventurine dresses and how he looks. Honestly, because his aesthetics and looks just scream so much flavor that I simply cannot overlook it, or even not to start with it. When Dr. Ratio said he looked peacock-esque, he really wasn't kidding. Aventurine has a flashy design that is hard to ignore. Like, literally, look at this dude. From his outfit alone, he screams to have all eyes on him. He has a combination of vibrant colors in his outfit with the green Aventurine color suit, as well as the fur, and in all honesty, just the glasses, the watch, the rings, everything about him just feels like it's very show-offy and lets him stand out, which is incredible. Furthermore, continuing to talk about his outfit, it is incredible to see how many like casino-like elements are present throughout his whole outfit. We can see this through spades in his chest window, the clubs on his back, a set of inverted hearts on his coat as well as on his shoes. There's also a pair of diamonds in his pants, not to mention the spades and hearts on his sleeves. And additionally, he has a pair of clubs hanging from some sort of tassels, I believe they're called. And to top it all off, it would be an absolute crime not to mention how even his eyes have become the shape of diamonds. And I say become because when we look at Kakavasha, like in the past, he had very round eyes. Now, this ones look very, very sharp and very diamond looking like, if I do say so myself. That being said though, despite all of that, his looks and his outfits both represent a sort of facade and a fake image that he wishes to display upon others. While he may look confident and as a daring gambler on the outside, it's just a mask for his insecurities, his overthinking. He is someone that's afraid of failure. And honestly, outward appearances can very much mislead people as a whole, so it is no surprise that Aventurine has been able to perfect it, especially as a gambler who must keep a poker face, so to speak, on at all times. But in reality, Aventurine's true character can be interpreted as someone that suffers from a sort of inferiority complex. He even mentions in the story how he's afraid that one day he'll screw up, that his gamble may not work anymore, and he will be left in ruins, that if he messes up, it will be the end of him. And because of this, at times he mentions that he holds tightly onto one last chip, as if he loses it, that means that he would lose it all. And I thought it was very clever to kind of implement that sort of mechanic in one of his trailers, where he does, you know, do all the flashy movements and everything, but once he rolls the die, he has the hand behind his back because he still does not wish to fail in the gamble. To a certain extent, maybe these gambles are a way for him to encourage himself to actually do things. And while it might be risky, hey, it works. If you want to do something and you're not scared to do so, you know, then go ahead and do it. But if you are scared, go do it while you're scared. You may not really realize how much you will thrive and how capable you are until you give it a shot. And legitimately, what Aventurine, in my opinion, shows us is that no matter the risk, no matter how scared you are, you should really give it a try, and eventually you will succeed. This fake mask that Aventurine puts on honestly makes me adore the fact that he was even able to be offered to follow the Elation in the Masked Fools, and it is quite fitting in all honesty. Aventurine fakes a carefree, wild, and exciting lifestyle full of riches and potentially vices, but it is all sort of a coping mechanism that he portrays. He doesn't believe in it. This is why I also adore the fact that they added a follow-up attack into his kit to somewhat display this side of him that would have had the opportunity to follow Aha. For as scary as it sounds, like legitimately going back to 2.1, that scene he had was absolutely outstanding, where he mirrors the first time that we meet him in our room with his dialogue, where he's playing with the coin chip and then does a little magic trick. Just, it exudes confidence, it exudes power, it is all so freaking awesome. Yet behind it all, he still is scared of failure in every moment, but he's able to hide it so freaking well that just makes me adore this character so freaking much. And if he didn't have this sort of imposter syndrome that he appears to be facing, then he would legitimately have been a menace as an IPC, but also even scarier as a potential follower of Aha. And I love that about him. That being said though, the fact that he declined an invitation from the Masked Fools might be partially a way to explain why Sparkle has a sort of dislike and distaste towards Aventurine in the Penacony storyline. It can be seen that she does help him, but she tends to insult him or at times even feel very condescending while she's toying with him. And she just adores to toy with him in particular. She messes with Sunday at times and obviously, you know, kidnaps us at some point, but it feels more for the progress of the plot. While when she interacts with Aventurine, it feels like true, it does move the plot forward, but it's also taking time to needlessly mock him over and over again. And the reason why I say it is fitting is because from the Sparkle and Black Swan companion mission, we see that Sparkle gets very angry and annoyed when Black Swan refuses to join sides with her. And she may just potentially dislike the fact that Aventurine was someone else who refused the Elation. But that honestly is just a theory. I am just assuming that there might have been some conversation within the Masked Fools that, you know, there's a known person that has rejected their invitation, and you know, this particular person that has rejected them was Sigonian, and you know, once they know that it was a Sigonian who rejected them, is it really that hard to find which particular Sigonian was when there's only one left potentially? Yeah. So, I don't know. It just feels rough for Aventurine, and I can kind of see further why Sparkle might get angry at him. Mind you, it is not justified at all, but I can understand where that hatred might be coming from now, if that was the case. Moving on, one of the things that I personally loved about Aventurine's chapter for the Trailblaze mission is that it was dubbed Danse Macabre, for which I have two things to say about that. The first one is that I am very happy that Hoyo implemented something I personally wanted and wrote in one of my feedback suggestions, in that I really want to see more character stories where we play in the perspective of said character rather than as the Trailblazer, similarly to how we did with Yanqing in his own companion mission. And now I know that they are potentially writing things like that, which makes me so happy. I know that it wasn't my feedback that did this, but I just feel heard. So that makes me happy, and again, it makes me adore this game that much more. The second thing I want to say is that it is so fitting that they named Aventurine's chapter La Danse Macabre, which is a song by Camille Saint-Saëns. I'm really hoping I pronounced that name right. But this song is also known as the Dance of Death, which is essentially supposed to represent a dance of skeletons, and that the death is just inevitable. The significance of it is honestly quite simple, yet incredibly profound, I feel. After all, death reaches everyone, no matter who you are. Whether you are rich or poor, young or old, powerful or weak, your time will come one day, and it is an unavoidable fate. Which in the case of Aventurine, was when he was trying to reach a way to provoke Acheron to use her blade on him so he could finally reach what would be essentially Penacony's land of the dead. And throughout the entire story, the whole plot was revolving around the fact that Aventurine was going to die. That he had 17 system hours before he would reach his demise. So having the fact that this chapter is him awaiting death is so fitting for this title. Additionally, going back to the reference song, I do adore how it also shows us how in ancient times people were to a certain extent obsessed with death, but also how they grew and moved forward from it. Looking back in time, we see portrayals of death in the form of writing, music, paintings, and it wasn't a bad thing in all honesty. It just depends on which lens you were seeing these things. Like on one hand, sure, it looks depressing and it looks sad, as death is a concept that many fear and that they want to avoid. So it is most certainly unpleasant to talk about, but you can also see it in a positive light. But if we look at it from another perspective, death is still in one way, shape or form a universal truth. We are all equal to it, and it honestly helps teach us the value of our lives. Time is our most valued resource, so we should live in the moment and make the most of it. That we are our own masters and we decide what to do to give meaning to our life. And I love that about it, because in the 2.1 patch, that was the whole premise, that was the whole gimmick. It talks about how nihilism and perspectives can make people think differently, and the more you analyze it, the more you go further into it, the more your perspective on things can change. I went a bit more on this on my video on why I think the Path of Nihility is perfectly designed, so I would definitely encourage you guys to go check that out. But legitimately, it is just great, it is wonderful, and I love how in a certain way this teaches us that we should not interpret death as the dreadful end, but rather a natural event in life that allows us to celebrate life. It feels like we have been talking a fair amount about the Elation and even the Nihility, but we have yet to even touch a little bit in regards to the path that he currently does follow, that one being the preservation. As a member of the IPC, he is essentially a worker for Qlipoth, one of the oldest Aeons and a fierce one at that. After all, he was one of the major players in enacting the downfall of Taisinron. I'm really hoping I pronounced that right. Who is the Aeon of Propagation, back in the era of the Swarm disaster, and even nowadays faces itself against the Voracity, which is a path we know very little about other than apparently these individuals created the Leviathan. So yeah, it is very concerning. But speaking further on the path, it is known for wanting to keep things safe but separated, especially in the case of Qlipoth. And I personally did find this very odd for that particular reason, because we never really learned that the IPC is actually going against their own Aeon's wishes, despite having direct blessings from them in the form of cornerstones that grant them power. Like, Klepoth wants to isolate every planet and essentially build sort of walls around it to keep everything separate and everything safe, while the IPC is kind of just colonizing everywhere and connecting like trade routes, conquering planets. It is insane. So that just blew my mind when I figured it out, and I'm really eager to know what else might happen within the Trailblaze missions once we dive deeper into the IPC, which we have seen in every single planet we have so far. So that is something that's going to be really cool for the future. That being said though, we're able to see a fraction of the cornerstones in the storyline when we fight Aventurine. And honestly, the amount of players that were wrecked is both horrifying, but it also makes me excited for future boss fights that are to come. Like, legitimately, it is just great. And in all honesty, this one detail that Aventurine gave us makes the interaction with Topaz back in Belobog that much more scary and terrifying. Like, it makes me finally understand why even someone like Mr. Zverog, who we know is highly respected and is a weapon of destruction, you know, outright refused to resist Topaz. Like, he saw Topaz and was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not gonna fight you. What do you need? And then he just helped without objections. It really does put things into perspective. And speaking of Mr. Zverog real quick as well, it is surprising because now that I know what Klepoth's actual intentions are, Mr. Zverog was actually doing what the Preservation wanted when he was separating both the underworld and the overworld in his own downsized kind of experiment, not experiment, but like his own controlled group. He was doing that. So he was obeying properly what the Preservation wanted this whole time, and we changed his ways. So that is just some food for thought, and that, again, that just blew my mind away. Every single time I do one of these videos, my brain goes boom. Getting back on topic though, one of the things that I personally also adore is how Aventurine tells us, the audience, not the main characters, and definitely not the Astral Express, that had he not shattered the cornerstone for his plan, he could have easily destroyed a huge portion of Penacony, and he would have been able to even survive the Stellaron explosion had he annihilated our main character. So with all of this in mind, imagine if Himeko hadn't come to help us in Belobog, and Topaz had been, had been resorted to aggressive methods. Could you have imagined a boss fight against Cornerstone empowered Topaz? Yeah, no, that would have been absolutely horrifying. And I do want a boss fight against Topaz in the future. Without Numbi. Please, Hoyers, if you're listening to this, please keep Numbi out of this. I do not wish to hurt this particular little trotter. They must always be protected. Though, the one thing that I would love, I'm like painting a whole scene in my mind, because again, we know we have defeated a Cornerstone user. We just don't know that this Cornerstone user wasn't at full potential. So if we were to fight someone that could potentially let us live, it would have to be Topaz, and then that way we can actually see how much more powerful the Cornerstones really are in the lore. And the reason why I would like to lose that fight is for or not necessarily lose that fight, but you know, once we finish the actual combat system, Topaz goes for a super move, but then the one that saves us is Numby, and that is how the friendship gets reinstated. And also, you know, there's no casualties, so no important characters die, even though I'm still an advocate that I want some characters to die. I might be a bit sadistic on that regard, but I do get intrigued to see who might be the next person to die. It might be crushing, or it might be kind of just like a, oh shit, that's rough, and I'll move on forward. Though even if they were to pick a character that I don't really care that much about, like Arlen, I know for a fact that they would make it devastating. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next step. And I'm sorry if I'm manifesting a bad omen into the game. I hope you all have a wonderful day, but moving on. That aside though, I know that I have gone a little bit off topic again, but I do wish to see more of the other Stoneheart members, especially Jade, who we got to see a little bit of a teaser within the storyline in Penacony, as she was the one that essentially recruited Aventurine into the IPC. And I honestly loved the parallels that were drawn about both the gemstones and the characters within said storyline. Like for example, the fact that they went ahead and mentioned how Aventurines are often used as counterfeit for jades because jades are more valuable, and it honestly just reflects the hierarchy within the IPC. It is likely not hidden to the members of the IPC that Aventurine was recruited by Jade, and there are likely rumors and comparisons that are drawn between the two of them, like internally. Like how Aventurine would likely not be able to compare to Jade, that Aventurine relies on dumb luck for his success, while Jade is more powerful than Aventurine. And in all honesty, Aventurine is likely to be hearing these often, over and over and over again, and it definitely wouldn't be helping that inferiority complex that he is suffering with. And if anything, it's gonna fuel it and make it that much worse. But this is why I personally adore that suitcase scene where he and Dr. Ratio have a meeting with Sunday. The tension is high, there are a lot of plot twists as I mentioned before, and overall this is essentially the point where we as the audience are led to believe that Aventurine's gamble had finally failed for once, that Sunday was now in the possession of both the Topaz Stone and the Aventurine Stone. However, he later reveals that he used the Jade Stone to fool Sunday into thinking that was his cornerstone. The fact that he just used the more expensive stone as a counterfeit for the least expensive stone just feels so incredible and wonderful. And I love how much of a, again, plot twist, but also how well laid those plans have been for him to have succeeded in the way that he did. The fact that he used something that might have been a source of burden to further push his agenda, and he did it in a masterful and elegant way, that is what makes me adore him that much more. While yes, he is an overthinker, I do adore how well he is prepared for anything. How he's ready to take that step into the future despite being scared. It is also the fact that Aventurine is an overthinker that makes me adore it so much that he got paired up with someone as cool-headed and reliable as Dr. Ratio for this mission. They honestly balance each other out incredibly well, and they have some amazing banter with one another that made me adore them so freaking much. Especially during the miniature adventure with the gigantic Dr. Ratio. It was a lot of fun, they had a lot of back and forth, and it is those moments that just make me laugh so freaking much. And in all honesty, If you haven't watched the Keeping Up with Star Rail video that goes over Aventurine, I heavily do suggest you give it a watch because they have a chibi doctor ratio, and my goodness me, do those interactions they're just golden. That being said though, despite all these fun moments, we do have to also talk about the more tense and sorrowful ones. In particular, when they finally reach Sunday's office, where all of this just gets caught by the intensity of it all. The back and forth that Sunday and Dr. Ratio have, but in particular, the moment where we see that Dr. Ratio has betrayed Aventurine, and we can see it weighing on him incredibly hard. However, even though he knew what Aventurine's plans were, he still hated the idea of betrayal, and especially of lying. To Dr. Ratio, knowledge is truth. And because of that, he honestly despises lying. With the closest that he has ever gone to is lies through omission. And it was through not revealing key information during the Trailblaze Continuance quest, for example. However, in the office scene, when he had to lie, we see him display many emotions of sadness, regret. He even isolates himself to a corner of the room, moving his face away from Aventurine and Sunday, as if hating the actions that he had just committed, not only by selling out his comrade, but also by going against part of what is his integrity. And overall, it just makes it seem, like he hated what he did. That despite being given access to so much of Penacony's wealth of information, it is still him hating having done it through these methods. But it is those emotions that just make it that much more heartfelt when they finally leave the meeting and Dr. Ratio gives a special vial to Aventurine and tells him to use it if he ever was to be in dire straits. If he had no other choice, that this would be the thing that would save him. And what I love most about this detail is that he finally checks on it when he is in that weird realm created by Acheron with the Dark Void, and he finally reads what the vial has to say, which reads as follows: "The impossible in the dreamscape is not death, but rather dormancy. Do stay alive. I wish you the best of luck." I freaking loved reading that part when I was doing the Trailblaze mission. And my god, does Hoyoverse really know how to tug to the heartstrings, honestly. Again, I just adored the 2.1 storyline so freaking much. With all this IPC members talk out of the way, I want to trace back for a second the conversation towards the boss fight that we had against Aventurine in the storyline. The whole build-up towards the meeting with Aventurine at Clockwork Studio Park was incredibly well made, and I love how he essentially made the entire studio park his own stadium. He was gonna be center stage, and he freaking loved it. And in all honesty, it was so freaking incredible and sick hearing the upbeat music for the atmosphere to hype you up as you get closer and closer, and the song builds up with you as you walk towards it. It fills you with adrenaline, with hype, and it makes you feel pumped up for the fight that's to come. It is a fitting song given how it is portraying both the really cool fight that's about to happen, but also the massive gamble that is about to be taken in this combat. And when we reach him, we finally see him enhanced by the powers of the Cornerstone, and he looks incredible as hell, even though he is a menace. But I just adore him so freaking much. There are two things that I want to note out before, right, like that happened right before the battle begins. The first one is how we can see a top-down view of the whole battle that's about to begin, where we see a nightingale spectate what's going to happen, which essentially is symbolism of Sunday watching over every single move Aventurine has made ever since he left the meeting, and in all honesty just further puts pressure on Aventurine to not only keep up this facade, but to keep on playing this genuine role of a villain, even if he doesn't feel like it. The second thing that, again, is just beautiful writing is more often than not, we do see the Trailblazer summoning their bat. But before this fight, he summons the lance. He's able to use the power of the preservation rather than the power of destruction. And it might be because of what happened with Firefly. Because in all honesty, looking at the weaknesses, it would make most sense for him to be summoning the bat, given that Aventurine is physical to physical attacks. But right now his priority is make sure that everyone is safe. Now, whether that is actually the intention or they just wanted to summon the different weapon, I don't know. But that is how I interpreted it, and I personally just loved that tiny little detail. It just makes that scene be one, more powerful, and two, shows even more development from that Trailblazer as a whole. So again, I love it so much. And with all of that being said, this is exactly when the battle begins. Once the boss fight begins, it is absolutely wonderful. The fact that the music itself builds up along with the dialogue before you get a turn is incredible, and it already makes that fight feel that much more memorable and incredible. The OST as a whole, just, oh my god, it's so beautiful. The high energy of the song, the fact that it feels like you're going to a trip to a casino and the energy feels all over the place, you feel euphoric. And at the same time, it is still menacing. But what I love most about this boss fight is how incredible they did with the flavor design of Aventurine as a whole. They gave him a bounce mechanic to show off how random his attacks can be whenever he throws that ship around. There's also that dice roll mechanic minigame where one of your characters has to roll one of two dice, or both if you have an AoE attack, and if you succeed, then good job, your allies don't get hurt. But vice versa, if you fail, then you're gonna get punished. And one of the things that I like as well is how in the second phase of the fight, now it is not designated to one ally to roll for you, but all of your allies have to roll to save themselves, which also kind of does feel a little bit like D&D mechanics with a roll for initiative or roll for perception. I'm not sure exactly which one would be the one that would apply most to about to get attacked, but I do like this little system overall. And also, one thing that I do like as well is how some of his attacks drain your energy. As if you lost in this round, even though there's nothing of a gamble there. You're still saying like, hey, since you lost, I'm going to take your energy. I'm taking your life because you lost and I attacked you, but also your energy is part of your currency, so I shall take a cut of that, and just gotta love it. Even though it is messed up, I gotta love it. And another reason why I love this fight is how the battle intensifies the longer you go. Like, once you beat the first round and enter the second round, the stakes become higher. He starts using his normal attack and it bounces way more than it was before. He drains more energy than he used to. When you roll your dice, now it's all your party members rather than just one. He increases the gambles further and further and further and does them more often, to the point that it does feel like he's starting to lose his cool, which again is something that we know that he hides. He has a really good poker face, but in the combat his actions do display that he is losing, and that is making him panic, making him go even riskier, more extreme, because at the end of the day, he does want to be the final victor of this encounter. However, once you defeat him in the story, he says perhaps one of the most jarring and cold voice lines that I have heard, being, "Everyone is like that, down to the last player. So why can't I be happy too? Why can't I feel that free?" And those words proceed to hit really hard and show you how desperate he can be and how horrible he must be feeling. Because even as an IPC higher up, he's still shackled by the world. That even though he lives a life of luxury and glamour, he is still essentially a prisoner in this life, which is not really his own. With his ultimate gamble being shown in the story as he uses the power to summon the massive rain of coins, he reaches his end by Acheron's blade, which at the end of the day was exactly what he wanted. It was the victory that he desired, and with that, he won the battle. Not against us, not against Acheron, but against Sunday. And I do love how us having full perspective of everything going on allowed us to see all of this. Lastly though, to end all on a more calm note, I do want to go over Aventurine's backstory. Back in time when he was still commonly referred to as Kakavasha, and during the time when he was still free, or at least as free as he could possibly be, in all honesty. As we know, the name Kakavasha means child blessed by Gayathra. It is also interesting to note that Aventurine was born on the day of the Kakava, which apparently celebrates the yearly rebirth of Gayathra Triclops. During this day, it always rains. As we are able to see this both during the scene where Aventurine is born, but also when he is talking to his sister in a future flashback. In both of these scenes, it is mentioned that it is his birthday and that it is raining. And I do love the symbolism of it, because apparently in that one day of the year, it is essentially a way for the rain to bring life back into the world. It is to let the lands flourish and for life to be able to exist. And to a certain extent, the planet is meant to represent the body of Gayathra Triclops, who we also have known as the name Fenge Bios. So I'm really hoping to see if we get to know more about this potential Aeon, because nothing is confirmed on whether or not if this was an Aeon. But I'm definitely intrigued, and I would love to hear more about this, in all honesty. That being said though, we do not know who or what this goddess is, or even some sort of confirmation on whether they are alive, or if they existed to begin with. At the same time though, this could be something similar to what Lan the Hunt has, where we know Lan by other titles, such as the Rainbow Arbiter, Skybow, Archer Lord of Fate, or even the Devilish Archer Author. Fenge Bios might even go by a completely different name that we might have heard of before, but we just have not had enough concrete evidence, or an Aeon that we're yet to meet. Who knows? All I know is that I'm very intrigued. I know I usually don't go into theories or make my own speculations, but something that I thought was interesting was that when you look at Enna the Order, who was consumed by Shipe, the Aeon of Harmony, in the splash art, while they may not have 3 eyes, it is cool to note that there's a gigantic eye on the right of the splash art that has very similar color scheme to Kakavasha's. So I'm not saying that is proof, but if that is actually connected to the Penaconic storyline, then my goodness me, am I gonna be so hyped to learn more about this essentially dead Aeon and more about Aventurine, because I'm really loving the job that they have been doing with them. This connection to Aventurine would also be interesting because it would also explain why Gaiathra Triclops just suddenly disappeared, why nobody sees Gaiathra Triclops anymore. It would have been because they got assimilated, they died. But people still believe that Gaiathra Triclops will come to help. So I'm not entirely sure. I would have to look further into the timelines, but just a little food for thought. If you think I'm crazy, you know, drop it in the comments, but I would love to hear some of your theories if it was possible. But going back a bit towards the initial question of whether or not Gaiathra Triclops even existed to begin with, I do find that to be an interesting question, because if we see life through how Aventurine had to live, his life is essentially that of someone who was blessed at the cost of others' happiness, their well-being, their lives. So isn't it ironic that even though they treated him as this one savior for the world, that he was gonna be the one to save Sigonia from all this despair, from this crisis, he was the only one that would have survived. And at the same time, this is a question that Aventurine does pose himself on, because if Gaiathra Triclops really was as benevolent and as kind as people were saying they were, why did she choose for Sigonians to be born in that planet? Why did they choose for Afghans to suffer so much? How bad was the punishment of their ancestors that they have to live in these conditions? That they have to go through death, hunger, and so much more. And one of the things that hurt a lot was, especially in the flashback, hearing how Kakavasha was saying that his mother died begging for Gaiathra Triclops to help her, but her prayers went unanswered. And that hit hard. But despite it all, and all the hardships that came after the passing of his family, after living life as a slave, he was able to succeed. He was able to move forward, and I just genuinely adore how much of an amazing character he is as a whole. So I am just excited, hopeful, and I want to see Aventurine again. I want to see more moments where now he's, I guess, independent and free, and maybe even his personality will change in a way that would be absolutely incredible. I'm just looking forward to more of these storylines, and I really need a companion mission with Aventurine. So yeah, that's the end of the video, and if you have stuck around this long, first of all, thank you very much for having watched all the way up to here. Secondly, you're absolutely insane, but legitimately I appreciate you so goddamn much. It means a lot to me that you're taking the time to listen to me ramble, yap, and talk about character designs and a little bit of history and things like that. This genuinely makes me so happy, and I'm liking the fact that we're able to kind of make little theories and, I don't know, speculations. It's always wonderful, especially because I do want to highlight characters that maybe other people might not have liked. In this case, Aventurine, everybody adores him, but I do want to, I guess, hit even further into the concept of it, because I don't know, just from having looked into Aventurine way before the 2.1 patch, I was already very excited, just seeing how he was, and then now that, you know, the content came out, that I can actually look further, deeper into like all these concepts like Sigonia, that I can finally see the tragedy of the Afghans, the whole music that they added to his whole scene, and also baby Kakavasha with future Aventurine. Oh my god, just, I really need more of these stories, and I want to cover these stories, and I want to go fully in depth what they could mean. So yeah, with all that being said and done, again, first of all, thank you for those that have subscribed. Currently, we are at 1,700 subscribers, which blows my mind away. I never would have thought that we would have reached a number like this every single time. We've been growing, and I really appreciate each and every single one of y'all. And also for those that are subscribed and are watching, thank you as well. I really do appreciate it. It always surprises me again that this number is higher than 1%. So thank you. I really do appreciate each and every single one of y'all. Leave down in the comments what other characters you might want me to cover in one of these videos. I have heard people wanting to hear about Pela, obviously about Sparkle, because I did that April Fool's joke, and I definitely will cover Sparkle, so don't worry. And overall, it's just been incredible. I also just have been adoring communicating with each and every single one of y'all. Like, legitimately, it makes me very happy, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to be able to make this content. And as always, I do want to thank my girlfriend for being a source of inspiration for me to continue moving forward doing these videos. Which also reminds me, I apologize for not having posted a video last week, because I really wasn't feeling the best. And yeah, now I do. I'm really hoping to keep up the pace. I'm writing more scripts now to have them pre-advanced and not feel that overwhelmed. Oh, and before I forget, on the 27th of April, which is a Saturday, at 9 p.m. EST, me and some friends are planning to host a little show, a little trivia show called Trivia EXP, where we're going to be doing some questions related to Genshin, and it honestly will be a lot of fun. We already did one episode of it, which we're going to be uploading some footage soon on YouTube. On its own little channel. So down in the description, I will be leaving links towards the Twitch and the YouTube for it. And that also reminds me as well to definitely check out my friend Indie Saga over on Twitch, as well as all the other contestants that we're going to be having in this game show. This one's being Ethan, Annie, and Tevad Barista, because all of them are great and wonderful streamers, and they deserve your support. With all that being said and done, oh wait, also before I forget, I don't want to exclude this, but also evening music is a big part of this project as well. They're helping us with the production of it, so also go check them out. And now, officially, with all that being said and done, I hope you'll have a great rest of your days, nights, mornings, whatever time zone it is for you, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye. Okay, so we have a little bit of a post-editing Manny here, mainly because I have come to learn something that was quite interesting. In the quest, All the Sad Tales, you know, when we have that harmony effect on the screen, and we have little Kakavasha and future Aventurine in there was something really interesting. As we know, there were like the steps dialogues for what we had to do in the quest, you know, speak with a person, go through the cannibal, catch up to the young Afghan. What I didn't know is that you can actually expand. I did know that you can expand the description of what you have to do, but in particular in this storyline, it is very horrifying, because if we keep looking further, it keeps saying like, you know, the murmurs grow louder, the murmurs grow louder. And suddenly it changes to you are unable to uncover your past. You are unable to uncover your past. You're unable to uncover your past over and over. It starts getting more and more distorted, which is horrifying. And if we keep on moving, right, it says, oh, you need to catch up to the Afghan boy. Your wounds will never heal. You need to catch up to the Afghan boy. You cannot escape from the past. Your future never existed. And this one, in my opinion, was the one that like hit hardest the most in like sense of this our Adventurine's negative thoughts, or if anything, something negative influencing Adventurine, is how he goes failure, discarded, selfish, useless, pointless, coward, murderer, gambler, blessed, discarded, loser, chosen one, mother goddess's beloved, crazy, murderer. Like, legitimately, looking at all of these, it's insane. But, like, they did such a beautiful job for some, like, little data of storyline that probably most people wouldn't have read. And in all honesty, now it makes me want to like read properly all of these descriptions. See, afterwards, once you take the photo with Kakavasha, everything is blank, and then it says, you know, the end of the whole thing, of the whole scene, when you are finally gonna, you know, encounter yourself to prepare for the boss fight as Aventurine. It says, "Get on stage, fear not, never look back." And I thought, narratively speaking, that was just beautifully made. So yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know with that little piece of knowledge because I thought it was really interesting. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.